everyone. Welcome back to our first AMN Live Q&A event of the year. We thought we would kick off January by taking it back to the basics. Today, we will be discussing what to expect when it comes to travel assignments, taking it back to step one of the process. What can new travelers expect to happen when starting their travel career? I couldn't think of two better guests to have today than Manager of Recruitment Sierra Albright and Senior Recruiter Megan Grosso. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And before we dive into the discussion, let's just review a couple housekeeping items for today. First and foremost, please feel welcome to drop questions or comments in the chat. I will be keeping a close lookout for your questions, and we'll be sure to relay them over to Sierra and Megan throughout our discussion. We love questions, so drop a comment. Let us know what topics you want us to chat about today, and maybe even for future sessions as well. Also, while you're online today, be sure to check us out on social media. Our Instagram handle is at AMN Allied. We post hot jobs on our Instagram. We have engagement contests, and we highlight current travelers on with AMN Healthcare frequently. So be sure to give us a follow. We also have a mobile app called AMN Passport. And if you have viewed any of these sessions before, you know we talk about this app all the time. It's a one-stop shop for everything you need, start to finish, while traveling with AMN. So be sure to download the app, get connected with a recruiter if you haven't already. Last, but certainly not least, I wanted to mention a new contest that's currently happening over here. AMN Healthcare is running a blog contest. So you can share your story with us for a chance to win $2,500. To be entered, all you need to do is write a blog sharing your allied journey, tips for fellow travelers, or anything else that you want to share with the community. You can click on the link on the screen to learn more, get involved, and submit your blog. Okay, now that is out of the way, Sierra, Megan, I would love to turn it over to you, give you guys a chance to introduce yourself to our audience. Sierra, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I am Sierra. I am a manager of recruitment with our Allied division. I have recently transitioned into the manager role, but have been recruiting for the last few years. Some of my travelers might be on here with us, I hope. But yeah, that's me, and I love it here.
And I am Megan Grosso. I've been a recruiter here at AMN for a little over 2 years, and prior to this, I was a PTA. I've been a PTA for about I guess it's been over 10 years. But I traveled as a PTA with AMN about 10 years ago as a new grad, and I loved it then, and I love it now as a recruiter.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. And like I mentioned, I think you guys are the perfect guests to have today because you're recruiters who chat every day, about this topic with new clinicians who are looking into travel for the first time. So I think starting out, we should kind of take it to the first step. What would you say is typically the first step a clinician should take when wanting to learn more about travel? What does that typically look like from your all's point of view?
Yeah.
You want me to go, Megan? You take it.
I'll start. Yeah, sure. So yeah, usually the first step is going on the website or downloading the app. The app is really great. Like Nicole said earlier, you can go on there and you can set up a profile. Usually once you set up your profile, then you will be paired with a recruiter, and that recruiter will reach out to you. And they will set up a time for you guys to chat over the phone. And then at that point, usually you can, maybe gather some questions that you want to ask, or you can come, without any questions, and that's also fine. We can go over the whole process together. So yeah, that's about the first step.
Yeah. And I think adding on to that too, and Sierra, feel free to jump in here too. I think if you're viewing this Q&A live, you're in a good spot. You're probably researching websites. You can follow us on social media, like we mentioned, and definitely connecting with maybe travelers on the ground. that's a great way to get your foot in the door as well, hearing from their experience and getting connected that way. And I think, kind of diving a little bit more into that conversation with a recruiter for the first time, because that best way to learn more about travel is to get connected with a recruiter and have a one-on-one conversation, learn about the experience. So what are some of the topics that clinicians should expect when hopping on the phone with a recruiter for the first time? What should they be prepared to potentially talk about?
I know with me, I try to keep things very just simple, nothing too crazy. Just really want to know why you're thinking about traveling, where your mind's at, whether it's exploring new areas or wanting to just excel, financially or whatever that might look like for you. But also going over just what we offer as a company as well when it comes to benefits and all of that. I know sometimes it can feel a little scary to go into that first conversation with the recruiter, but I think generally it's really more fun than anything to just have that opportunity to get to know each other and have ultimately your recruiter is going to be your biggest advocate. And I think building that relationship from the first conversation is such a top priority, because it's a lifelong commitment to your recruiter ultimately down the line. So just keeping it really simple, but in the sense of, why are you doing this and how can I best support you with what you're looking for, but also with, what the world of travel needs right now as well.
Yeah, I would even say too, if you're a new grad and maybe you are looking to kind of dive into different settings, like that's kind of what I was thinking whenever I first started. I didn't really know what setting I wanted to be permanent at later on, once I decided to settle down. So that was a great way for me to just kind of try out different settings and see, what was my favorite setting.
Yeah. So having an idea in your mind of what that ideal travel experience is going to look like for yourself, but also maybe coming to the table with questions. If anything's not making sense or you want more clarity, or like Megan said, if you know nothing, that's fine too. Just call and have someone explain it all.
We'll always have the spiels to just give you all the information if you don't quite know what you're looking for.
Sure. And I think on that topic too, do you think it's realistic for a traveler to get everything they want? I think sometimes we get calls from clinicians looking into travel for the first time, and they're looking for a specific setting, a specific city, a specific pay, an idea scenario. Is that common that we have something that matches, or what's that conversation look like?
It depends on where they're looking. I would say, California is always what I bring up and talk about. It's a huge state, always has jobs there. So, it's easier to find more what you're looking for in that state. But it is very hard to find all three of those things, the pay that you're looking for, the setting you're looking for, the location exactly that you're looking for. So the biggest thing is to try to be open-minded to things and maybe, I have so many travelers that I have booked at places that they didn't expect to go to, and they end up telling me that it's their favorite location. I did a travel contract in DC, and I didn't expect to go there, and it ended up being amazing. I extended there. I was there for 6 months. So just things like that, like just being open to it and just being ready for like new possibilities and new things that you didn't think that you would go into.
I think 100% a billion times on everything you just said, Megan. You made me think of a story that I think would be so fun just to like mention. And if he's on here, it'll be so funny. But he is an X-ray tech of mine who I adore, who's actually from the South, like Southeast. Did a contract with me in Louisiana, which was wonderful, but was not necessarily what he was looking for. After that contract, ended up all the way across the country in New Mexico. Never thought it was ever a place that he would even consider going. And now he's like found the woman of his dreams there and like never wants to leave. And it's just like the most beautiful.
Goosebumps. Oh my God.
I know, I just got him too, but and I hope like he will come back and watch this and then he can use it as, you know, perks with her later. But it's just it's the coolest thing to see happen, especially from the recruitment side of like, for me, it's like I just get this like tiny pinky toe into your life and like help push things in a direction. And when you see things evolve like that, it's just the most enjoyable and like exciting thing from our seat, I think. So anyways, that is just a testament to the concept of just staying flexible and remembering that the majority of travel positions are open because like help is needed. And there's a void where patients need care. And I think the more flexible and the more willing you can be on that front is going to set you up for more success. Now, is it possible that we have the position exactly where you want for the exact pay? Maybe that's why you applied initially. You saw that exact position. But it's definitely a dime a dozen, you know? So just really remaining open-minded about stuff. You never know what might happen.
Yeah. And, you know, either way, the travel market's so fluid. So if you don't get your top choice the first go around, maybe your second or third assignment, it does open up and you're ready to go and you're that much more competitive because you have a couple assignments under your belt. So that's why we're here, to keep you in the loop of those things. And kind of backing it up a little bit, how long does it typically take to get a traveler started in a new position? You know, from start to finish, from that first conversation with the recruiter to their first day in the building, how early should someone reach out?
So I'll just say, like, I've talked to people who aren't even graduated from school yet, and they're looking into travel in the future. So I've talked to somebody as early as a year in advance. But when we're looking at submitting out, we usually have to look between like that 2 to 8 week time frame. And like we could get on the phone that initial call, and we could get your profile finished right then and there, on that call, and then we could get you submitted out. If you are looking to get started right away, we'll look at the jobs together. So really, we could get you started as early as 2 weeks, and then probably submit out as late as 8 weeks. But it's never too early to get the conversation started with the recruiter.
Perfect.
Just exactly what you said.
Yeah. And that's really what to expect, right? That the first step, calling into the recruiter, getting connected, vetting through those jobs, figuring out where you're interested in, and then getting set up for a phone interview. So after that clinician has interviewed and then accepted an offer with AMN Healthcare, you know, then what? From accepting that offer to their first day, what's that period of time look like? That could be maybe 2 to 8 weeks. What are they doing during that time period?
So as soon as you accept the offer, there is the general credentialing process that will differ from place to place. We have an entire credentialing team that helps with that process, as well as, you know, us as your recruiters are involved in that as well. Generally, at minimum, that process takes around 2 weeks. You know, sometimes you can see it take 3, or, you know, sometimes things might get a little behind with, you know, a TB test or who knows what, that might make things a little bit delayed. But generally that's what you're working on during that process. And then, you know, your manager might reach out with, you know, instructions before your first day, or who to contact, or, you know, how to log your time, all of that good stuff. So it's a lot of logistical things in between, as well as, you know, finding housing if you need to find housing, or us helping you, you know, research different housing and stuff. But a lot of logistics in that in-between phase until it gets super fun on, you know, the first day you're actually starting.
Yeah, and I'll just add about the licensing too for our therapy people. You know, they have to get a license in each state. And that will vary, and we always will make sure that we're realistic with the start date whenever we submit out to the job. So if the license, you know, says that it's going to take about 3 to 4 weeks, then we'll submit out for about 4 weeks so that you can have plenty of time to get it. We do have our PT and PTAs who can do the compact license if they come from a compact state. So that's super easy way to do it. Usually it's just a jurisprudence exam. Some states don't even have you do the law exam, but then it's just a couple fees, and then you can get that license most of the time either right away or within like a week or two. So it can be really quick for the licenses, and then there are other licenses that take a lot longer. So then we'll just kind of go through that with you whenever we're looking at the jobs.
For sure. Yeah. Wrapping up everything, getting you cleared to start. And kind of circling back to something you said, Sierra, something I hear a lot as a recruiter is clinicians being hesitant about starting assignments in new states or branching out as a true traveler because of temporary housing. The housing piece just can feel really daunting or scary at times. Do either of you have advice on common sites that travelers use for housing, or just tips and tricks when it comes to temporary housing in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just as a side note, and this is just what I have found over time has been the most beneficial, especially if you're coming from another state. It never hurts to, stay in a hotel that is a good hotel in that area for the first couple weeks, especially if it's somewhere you've never been, because you might not really know where the housing or the actual house or apartment is until you get there. So that's something just to keep in mind. I know most of my people tend to use furnish finders for their housing. And I do have quite a few RV folks that stay in RV parks and stuff during their assignments. But I'd say those are like the top recommendations or tips, I would say.
Yeah. I see furnish finders a lot with travelers, and then I see Airbnb is another big one that they use. And if we're going to a place that is a little bit trickier with housing, I always advise the traveler to ask on the interview, maybe talk with the manager. Maybe they can tell them about travelers that have been there in the past, and maybe they might know like the areas that they looked in for housing. Another good one is on Facebook groups. If you belong to any travel Facebook groups, you can literally just plug in, hey, I'm going to Tucson, Arizona, and I need help finding housing. Does anybody know of anything that's available? And then usually people will respond and help out that way.
Yeah, it's such a large community of traveling healthcare professionals outside of allied nursing, other disciplines. So we got your back. If you run into issues, we can help get you connected with someone who can help, or we can talk about what AMN housing looks like as well. There's always a backup plan when looking at housing. And another thing that seems to be a common question amongst new travelers is, how many assignments am I required to complete with AMN Healthcare? Am I signing on for a whole year? Can I take time off throughout traveling? Questions around the logistics of what to expect once you accept an offer.
I get this question all the time. There's no requirement as to how many contracts you have to work with us, or where you have to go, or any of that. Time off is definitely really flexible in the travel world. I think that's a really big thing that pulls people into the traveling idea. Is you always have, you might want to extend or whatever, but you always have the end in sight. When you're done at that spot, and when you can maybe take a few weeks off if you want to. The only thing I would say is, just being mindful of how much time off for the sake of maintaining your insurance in between contracts. But other than that, there's flexibility, especially in between contracts. And we can also still ask for time off during the contract as well. It's just a matter of, what makes sense for that specific job and what their needs are. So misconception, there's not like a contracted amount of contracts that you have to work with us.
Yeah. I had a traveler who worked, he's been an advanced traveler, like traveling for many, many years. And he just took a whole month off and went to Japan to go explore Japan. So, he doesn't take insurance with us. So he does have his own private insurance. So that makes him, it's a little bit more flexible that way. But yeah, so.
I love it. Yeah. And Megan, when you traveled, did you travel kind of back to back to back? Did you just do a couple assignments here and there?
So I did, for the most part, go back to back. There was one time that I wanted to stay around the Philly area. And so because I was location specific, I had to just wait for something to pop up. So I pretty much was just hanging out in Philly for about a month. And then another one popped up. So then I was able to take that. So sometimes that will happen if you are a little bit, more location specific or maybe setting specific. It just might take some time. You might not be able to get a contract, right back to back every time.
Yeah, kind of going back to that flexibility piece, you can decide for yourself if you want to try something that you've never thought of, or if you have a goal of being in a certain location, it's just a little bit of a waiting game. And I know we talked on this a little bit, but licensing is a huge conversation, especially on the therapy side of things. And we work with so many different disciplines where it really will vary from each discipline, each state. But any more, tips or tricks or what to expect when it comes to licensure? Just more details on that, if you guys have any.
So that's something that I always like to put out right away, because then that will kind of help us figure out our game plan and our timeline of when we want to submit out to certain jobs. So usually I like to ask the traveler, what are your bucket list states that for sure you want to hit up in the, if you're going to travel for a year, 2 years, whatever it is. And then I will send out a license cheat sheet that kind of gives the estimate timeframes of each license. So if say like maybe it's a PT who doesn't come from a compact state, well, California's not in the compact anyways, but I always use California as the example. So maybe California's on your radar, but that license is a little bit longer. So maybe for our first assignment, let's take a contract in a state that is 3 to 4 weeks to get the contract. And while you're on assignment in that first state, we can be working on your California license so that it's active before we even start submitting out to the next job, to the next contract. So that's always a good thing. You don't have to be licensed in multiple states, but it's good if you don't come from a compact state to have a couple under your belt. That way, in the event that we're just not finding something in the one state that you have your license in, we want to have like a backup plan B, plan C kind of thing.
I think it's a whole different world on the imaging and radiology side, which honestly is where I spend the majority of my time. So, you have the ultrasound world where there's only 4 states that even require licensure, which makes it like the perfect modality to travel in. You can pretty much go anywhere. And then, radiology, X-ray, CT, all of that, you only have, a handful of states that don't require licensure. So those are always states that we can look into. And in the meantime, same kind of concept. The nice thing about us as well is we do have a team of like crazy professionals that know licensing in and out, far more than I probably ever will. So if you are booking a contract in a place that you don't have a license and the facility is willing to wait on you to get licensed, then we have a team that can actually help with the whole process, and we can reimburse it as well if it's needed for that specific contract. So that's helpful too. I know I rely on them a lot for questions and stuff. So.
Oh yeah. And I think to drive home that too, like you both mentioned, you don't necessarily need an active license when you're chatting with a recruiter, when you're going through the interview process. We just need to make sure it's a state where it's going to process before your start date. So you can be super proactive about things. You're not limited if you only have one license getting started. And I would love to hear from both of you on, how often should travelers be hearing from their recruiters while on assignment? What should they expect there? And what can travelers expect the clinician and recruiter relationship to look like? Or if either of you have a story of a really positive experience you've had as a recruiter traveler relationship, I'd love to hear that too.
I think it really varies case by case a little bit, in the sense of some of my travelers love to talk to me all the time, and others, are pretty self-sufficient and don't really need me a whole lot. I think it's really it's really your individual preferences. Now, I never come out and I'm like, oh, do you want to hear from me once a week? No, I just kind of go with the flow as things happen. But I think the most fun part about recruiting, in my opinion, is it quite literally feels like I just have a bunch of friends everywhere. And I'll just make a little funny on this because you mentioned it, but I have she's really a friend of mine at this point, who was just randomly at like the makeup store and wanted my opinion on a concealer to buy. Like that was just like a normal, girl to girl. And that's really the stuff that makes it so much fun and just, such an enjoyable career path for me. But it also, will absolutely make your experience as a traveler too, if you really vibe well with your recruiter. So anyways, that's just a funny story that happened like a couple weeks ago that made me laugh. So.
That's crazy. She's your traveler now?
Yeah, she's worked a couple contracts with me. She kind of comes and goes a little bit. She has quite a few like local home PRN jobs. So she's one of those. She doesn't stay in consistent contracts.
Yeah,
she comes and goes
world.
places, and it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say exactly that. I kind of just figure out, like what each person, their personality is like, if they like to chat on the phone, I like to chat on the phone. So they can call me anytime. I will call them. I usually try to make it a point to reach out definitely on the first day, because I want to make sure, they're there, they found the place and everything. I will check back in probably at the end of the week and just see like, how'd it go, and just kind of get a feel for how that went. And then from there, just depending on our relationship, maybe they're a texter and they like to text. I'll just like shoot a text randomly every couple of weeks or something. Or maybe they are somebody who likes to talk on the phone. So then I'll give them a call and we'll just chat and catch up. I have friends. I have travelers that are friends on Facebook. So like keep in contact that way on social media. My recruiter when I traveled is now my boss, Julia. So, we've known each other for over 10 years. So that just kind of shows that like, if you have a good trusting bond with your recruiter, it's going to make your travel experience so much better. And yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Yeah, all the feel goods. I love it. And I think that's a good segue to kind of wrap up our time. Believe it or not, it's already been about 30 minutes. And, I'd love to hear any lasting advice to travelers who are tuning in today, looking into travel for the first time. Any words of wisdom or advice you want to give on how to make the most of their travel experience, make it the most positive experience they can.
I always tell, especially new grads, I always tell them because for me, I was very location specific, and looking back on it, on the 2 years that I traveled, I wish that I would have done the big jump to California, to Texas, to, the Midwest to go hiking. I wish that I would have done that. So if you are a little bit nervous about making that big jump, maybe your first assignment, you can stay close to home and try it out and see how you like it. But you should really do that big jump and get out there, because there's so much to see, so much adventure out there. So that would be my biggest advice, I think.
I would 100% echo that, and I'll just echo it with another funny little story that ties perfectly into that. I actually have an occupational therapist that started with me as a new grad, and that was the exact scenario. It was, a little bit of nerves, families in this area, I don't really want to go too far. And so we did exactly that. The first contract we found that was just a few hours away. It was enough away, but wasn't, right at home either. And now she's been in Alaska for the last 6 months. So you just never know how those things are going to play out. And you might like be scared of a situation like going all the way to Alaska, but it turns out to be like the coolest experience. And I think most people, similar like what you said, Megan, is like, if you don't do it, you wish you had.
Exactly.
So just really staying flexible and being open to all the ideas for sure.
Yes. And thank you guys so much for joining us. I think this has been a great conversation. You guys are so knowledgeable. Anyone watching, please don't hesitate to keep dropping comments or questions in the chat. We'll be, viewing those. And I hope this conversation has inspired you to maybe download the AMN Passport mobile app, get connected with a recruiter this year. The great thing about travel assignments is they're super fluid. So we have new jobs posted every single day. So when the time is right on your end to travel, we'll be here to help. Stay tuned, for next month. We'll be releasing on social media what the topic is for February, and we will see you all next month. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.